It's the Funny Comics Fan Club.
Hello, and welcome to the Funny Comics Fan Club with me, Dr. Mark Hibbett, PhD, MSc, MA, BA Hons.
What a funny word to spell, Hibbett. and me, not Dr. John Dredge.
GCSE?
Yeah, GCSE spelling. I didn't even get mathematics. But be that as it may, we're here to do the next edition, the next issue of our podcast.
The Fantastic Fourth issue.
The Fantastic Fourth issue. Say that 3 times quickly and you'll get a t-shirt. But yeah, this week, what are we looking at, Dr. Mark Hibbett, MSc QPR?
So, John, this week we are looking at the Beano. We're looking at number 2196 from August the 18th, 1984.
1984. Every Thursday this came out, so did you rush to your newsagent every Thursday to pick the Beano up?
No, my nan did.
She got it
My
for
nan
you.
went and got this for me, yes. She got it with her weekly news.
I think one of my aunts used to get it for me as well. That's what you would get a little kid. You know, it's a safe bet, getting the Beano.
Yeah, I think so. But this is 84, so we will both have been 14.
Yeah, I would have been 14 at this point, so I definitely didn't get it when I was 14.
But it's weird, isn't it? Because when I read through this, it's pretty much exactly the same as I remember it being from when I was like 10 or whenever it was I stopped getting it. It's
exactly the same. You're a bit of an expert on the Beano in a way.
Oh, no. Thank you for mentioning it. I count that as a citation. Yes.
Yeah, maybe you could explain in what way you are a sort of expert.
Well, I've written in my book, Data and Doctor Doom, available from no bookshops at all, 90 quid to you, sir, 90 quid it costs.
A bargain.
A bargain, yeah. But there's a chapter in my book which is about Dennis the Menace. The Dennis the Menace is in the Beano, and the Dennis the Menace, who is the American comics character, who, in what we are contractually obliged to call the greatest comics coincidence of all time, Dennis the Menace in America and the UK were both published on the same day in 1951, completely independently of each other. It's weird.
Wow, what a weird thing.
It is a weird thing. But then I've done a couple of academic papers. But yeah, the Beano is such an interesting publication that is part of our culture. It's every British person of a certain age and above, and many below that age. We know the Beano, and it's part of our lives, isn't it?
Yes, and I think I'm right in saying at the moment it's the only one of those traditional UK humour comics that's still going. Is that right?
The only comics that are still going from the period this one came out in the 80s are 2000 in the Beano. That's it. All the others have gone completely now.
And the thing about the Beano is it's not just struggling on, it's doing unbelievably well as far as I can work out.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Well, they had a really good pandemic, didn't they? I think a lot of people went back and bought the Beano during the pandemic. Apparently their subscriptions went up. And as we know, John, they do a lot of online stuff. Do you want to tell people how we know about that?
Did we do something for that?
You're clearly the right person. Yeah, we did a sketch, didn't we? We did that History of the World. And
was that for the Beano?
That was for the Beano, yeah, because you went...
I can almost remember this.
You went to the filming, didn't you?
Yeah, because I was in it. So that's why I went to the filming of it.
It's usually the way, I find.
So we re-recorded the sketch, especially for the Beano, and then it didn't get on the website and they rejected it completely.
They did.
So, but yeah, I'd forgotten that we'd done that.
So we are part of Beano history.
Very much part of its history.
A very small part of its history.
A tiny part in the vastness of space that is the Beano. But why is this comic still going strongly, really strongly? I mean, they had Dennis and Nash on TV.
There have been a couple of versions, haven't there? I think there have been a couple of Dennis and Nash cartoons. They're really good on the web, the Beano. They have a very, very active social media presence. Yeah. And they do a thing where they actually get kids, they have focus groups of kids. So it's like a modern version of the little coupon that says, my favourites 1, 2, and I'm sorry I don't like. But they get those together, they listen to kids, they do stuff. So, I mean, I think it's interesting that so many of the characters that are in this issue of the Beano are still in current issues of the Beano, and they've been in the Beano since the 1950s.
It's mad. I mean, you can't imagine a character from the 1950s being relevant now, but they clearly have done things to ensure that they are still relevant to kids now. And it must be something to do with them doing all these focus groups and actually talking to kids in the playground and finding out what they're interested in, and I guess that reflects their interests in the comic.
Yeah, I mean, the great legend of DC Thomson. So DC Thomson published the Beano, and the great legend is that their old offices, where they actually drew the comics then, in Dundee, were next to a schoolyard. So they could listen out the window and hear what the kids in the Dundee schoolyard were talking about and what they liked, and that would influence how the comic went forward. But yeah, it's worked. I mean, it's a mad that, like Dennis the Menace, Minnie the Minx, Roger the Dodger, the Three Bears, Little Plum, all these
Bash Street Kids.
Bash Street Kids all come from around 1951 to 1953. They all started in the same time, and they're still here. Nearly all of those are still going in the comic now.
I mean, we're looking at an issue from 1984, but do you know if the Bash Street Kids now have still got the same teacher?
Yes, they have.
Is it all set in the 50s still?
No, it's not. It's modern now, and I think...
Because has he still got like a mortarboard on?
I think he has. I can't remember actually. I can't
remember. We'll have to do an episode where we look at a modern Beano.
We will. We will. But the weird thing about, the Bash Street Kids, let's go to the Bash Street Kids.
Okay,
the Bash Street Kids is one we were going to have a look at, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is from the 1984 comic we're looking at now. Mark is, for the benefit of the tape, Mark is inspecting the comic from 1984.
I'm inspecting it nasally.
Oh, blimey. He's sniffing the comic. I don't recommend you do this at home.
But if you look at it, I always think it's funny that I always remember there being 9 kids in the Bash Street Kids, and there are 9 kids. If forced at catapult point, I could probably name them all for you. We won't do that now. But there are 9 kids, and now in the Beano, class sizes are much bigger than they used to be, and there is a lot more kids in the Beano. And it's a much more diverse... the Beano have also done quite a lot of... all the kids in this... Well, I think there are 2 people of colour in this entire comic. That's not the way it is now. It's a lot more diverse. There are actually girls in the comic a lot more than there are in this one as well. But the original Bash Street Kids are still there. They've changed the names of some of the kids. So Fatty in this is not called Fatty anymore. He's called... I can't remember.
He's called...
Freddie. He's called Freddie.
Freddie.
Isn't he? He's called Freddie.
Fat Freddie he's called now.
Yeah.
What about Plug? The point of Plug is that he's Plug ugly.
Yeah.
That doesn't really work now. That concept, I don't think, somehow.
I think now Plug is meant to be, he's incredibly vain. So it's like, they've done a similar thing with Walter the Softie.
Walter the Softie?
So Walter the Softie and Dennis the Menace. He's a perfectly nice kid who's a little bit effeminate, who Dennis bullies him constantly. Dennis is horrible to Walter the Softie in these old comics. In the new comic, they change it so Walter is actually not a nice person.
Oh, right.
He is a sneak. He's always trying to get one over on other people. So in those comics, Walter is the aggressor. So
what's happened to Dennis then? Because clearly you just look at the front cover, Dennis the Menace and Nasher. In the first panel, the title panel, it's got a big cloud of smoke around the lettering, implying that he's always getting into fights.
Yeah, and he is always getting. And now,
so is he? What about now? Is he still getting into fights now?
He doesn't get into fights now. He certainly doesn't cause fights. He's more mischievous. He does pranks and he's mucking around, but he's a normal kid. He's a bit cheeky. But this Dennis. So what happens in it?
Well, Dennis the Menace is on the front and back covers in startling colour, full colour.
You talk about the startling colour. I thought it was interesting that clearly the blue. Well, the blue has gone wonky, hasn't it? The blue is slightly out of sync with everything else. And I remember that happening a lot.
What I like about it, I think this is probably the best written strip in this whole issue. And some of the things inside are not particularly well written.
No.
But this one does work really well, I thought.
It does, but it's not very nice, is it? Because I thought, when you're going through it, it's like, so what happens in the story is that
he is a menace at this point in 1984.
I would use another word for him at this point.
What, a bully or something?
He's a bully. He's a horrible bully. Because what happens is Dennis's football team are playing and their football kits have been worn out. So Dennis asks Walter the Softie to design a football kit for them. And his mates, Curly and Pieface, imagine how awful it will be. And it comes, and it's even worse than they imagined. It's got frilly collars, it's got lace on it, and all the other football players fall about laughing at Dennis's friends in these kits. And that's all part of Dennis's plan.
His evil plan.
And so at the end, we go full time. Feep, says the referee's whistle. 97-0 to us. We've won.
And then the bit right at the end
what happens right at the end is you go, oh, that's brilliant. So Dennis has really seen a use for these. He's accepted Walter the shirts are well made, they're working for him, he's going to stick with this, it's going to be a really good plan. No, what happens is they swap shirts with the other team, as is traditional, leaving the other team with the shirts which Walter designed and made for them free of charge. And they're going, good, that's got rid of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
horrible, Dennis.
They've got these much, in inverted commas, much better football strips on there. But I just thought it was clever the way it was written and the way it uses all of the panels, perfectly, really. The story, it's got a beginning, a middle and an end.
Sure has.
And it takes 2 pages to tell it, and you don't need any more, and you don't need any less. I just thought it fitted really well. I thought it was a good story with a good little twist in the end, which is lacking in a lot of stories that I've read recently in these sort of comics.
we have read quite a lot of bad comics. We've read some good comics.
We have read some good ones, and we've read some that, shall we say, aren't so good. But Dennis, I can see why that would have been popular in 1984. And you don't even have had to have read any other Beano comic to understand these characters straight away. There's one panel where it even tells you who his friends are, Pieface and Curly, and the little arrows to each character. So it's still pointing out, after 2,000 issues, who these characters are. So any kid could understand what's going on straight away. And that hasn't been the case in some of the other ones I've read. I mean, any idea who might have written this, or how do we know?
This was David Sutherland.
He wrote this?
I think we find this with a lot of these. We don't know who wrote them. There's one strip that I do know who wrote it.
Yeah.
The others, I don't know. I mean, and they never seem to talk about who actually writes these things. It's always who draws them.
Lost in Time, The Mysteries of Beano from 1984. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was nicely done. I didn't think it was that dated. I know what you mean about... the whole character of Walter doesn't work anymore. But going by the criteria that they'd set, it works nicely as a story.
The story works, yeah.
Let's move on.
We're turning the page, and as we turn the page, there we go, John Foley there. But as we move through it, what really got to me, really emotionally as we got through it, was the order of the strips. Because you turn over and it's like, you turn through and you think, well, I know that Minnie the Minx is going to be on page 4. You know that, and the Bash Street Kids are going to be in the middle. And the fan club page is going to be just before the Bash Street Kids. I'm going to say something now, it kind of feels it's sacred order to it, that this is how it goes, how it always went, you always knew. And even when they swap strips in and out, it's like there's kind of an equivalence to what goes in the front and what goes in the back. So now when I read the modern Beano, it's all kind of jumbled up, and it's like, no, Minnie's on page 4, what are you doing? This isn't right.
I see what you're saying. Let's have a look at the first page. The first page inside is Babyface Finlayson, the cutest bandit around. So this was a character that I remember as a kid liking, because it just looks so strange. It's a little bit, I better explain what it is. Babyface Finlayson, it started in 72, but I think it was in Little Plum originally, and then he got his own strip. And it lasted till 2012, it says here. So it was going for a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
And Babyface Finlayson is an outlaw from the American Old West, but he's also a baby. And he rides around in a motorised pram, stealing everything and shouting, yuck, yuck.
That was very informative, John.
Thank you, yeah. But what's interesting is, originally this strip was set in the Old West, and it used to be the cutest bandit in the West. But now he's in the UK, and I think it sort of works quite well. So all the kids can relate to this, everyday experiences with the cutest bandit around.
It's the cutest bandit around, not the cutest bandit I had never noticed that.
That's right.
But he looks so weird, doesn't he? He
does look weird.
He's got these nostrils that are on the side of his eyes.
It looks frightening.
Horrible,
absolutely frightening.
Horrible.
But yeah, so this story is he sees all these tiny tots in a nursery, and he says, I wish I had a picture on my bib like these infants. And he goes, so I shall. He runs into the baby shop, puts a cap over the eyes of the woman in charge of it, and grabs all these bibs, runs out, puts on one that has a picture of a mouse on the front, and is immediately attacked by a cat. So he puts on one with a picture of the duck on the front, and he's immediately attacked by a dog. And the dog takes him back to this duck hunter, who says, oops, my gun dog fetched you because of the duck on your bib. And then he says, just a minute, you're Babyface Finlayson, a wanted man. He says, how do you know? He says, the baby shop owner had special bibs printed with his picture on the front. So that's the story of it. I thought this was okay. It wasn't hilarious to me or anything. It was all right. It wasn't a classic by any means, but I think the character is a classic character because it lasted so long.
And this is the one that I know who wrote, by the way.
Oh, who wrote
So
it?
this was written by Ewan Kerr, who went on to become the editor.
He
of
did.
the Beano.
There you go.
And it was originally Little Plum, so this is like...
So Babyface Finlayson used to be in the Little Plum strip, as did the Three Bears, who are also in this, but Little Plum is not
Little
in
Plum's
this.
not in there, is he? No.
Where has Little Plum gone?
I don't know where Little Plum's gone.
Maybe he was having a week off, he was having a holiday or something.
But Little Plum still pops up. Hunt Emerson, incredibly, Hunt Emerson now draws Little Plum, which is mind-blowing that Hunt Emerson, underground artiste,
Extraordinaire.
extraordinaire.
Does it look anything like it used to?
It looks a bit like it. It looks like Hunt Emerson. When you know it's him, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Because he drew cartoons for the Goon Show Preservation Society magazine, which is why I know him. Then we have Roger the Dodger that's somehow lasted since time began.
The interesting thing for me about this one is Roger plays a trick on some of the kids. He hides inside a big plastic tiger litter box. So Roger hides behind it and does a roaring noise to scare some kids, which somehow works. And then the kids pull the trick on him again. And the moral of the story is, haha, Roger is foiled. So whereas with Dennis the Menace,
He's not foiled.
he wins where, hooray!
Hooray,
Dennis
Dennis
is bullying
has
some
won.
of the kids.
Yeah,
Here,
yeah.
boo, Roger is trying to bully some of the kids and doesn't get away with it.
But I didn't think this one was very well
It wasn't
written.
great. No, that wasn't a good one. But over the page...
What have we got over the page? Oh, your favourite is this?
Minnie the Mouse. I thought this was great.
Did you? Okay, this
Yeah.
is good. So you can explain some of this to me, because I didn't quite understand some of this.
So what happens in this one is some soppy girls who, to be fair, do seem quite soppy, doing some soppy skipping, and then he goes, no, I'm not having anything to do with that. So she goes to the video game arcade.
So this reminds me of when you used to get video games in places like fish and chip shops.
Yeah.
In the 80s. I mean, I used to have Defender. There used to be Defender in the chip shop down the road from me, and it used to cost a fortune to play it for about a minute.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to play it. So
Well,
I'd put a quid in or something, and it would mean, I'd have 10 seconds on the
Oh,
thing.
it's terrible. Yeah, we had Zaxxon in Deeping St James's Leisure Centre. And you go, like, brilliant, this is going to be a mate. Oh, it's finished.
Yeah.
Rubbish.
And I remember once that the arcade game that I was obsessed with was the Star Wars, the original Star Wars arcade game.
That was amazing.
Do you know it? You sit in the booth and it's like you're attacking the Death Star. That was a really good game. You felt like you were almost part of it. You were just firing lasers the whole time. I must have spent a fortune on that thing.
But that's what happens to Minnie here. So Minnie goes to play in the arcade, but then she can't play any longer because it shuts down.
Yeah.
So then she walks down the street and some old ladies are saying, oh no, they've got all those video games in the laundrette. So she goes to the laundrette to play it. But I think she has a job she spends all her money on it, doesn't she? I love the fact that the man who runs the laundrette is wearing a laundrette t-shirt. He's wearing a t-shirt with a picture of a washing machine and cover on it, which
That's
is
a
amazing.
nice touch. That's a nice
Gorgeous.
touch. Okay, now, so she goes into the laundrette. She wants to play on this Space Invaders machine, or whatever they call it, Galaxy Invaders for copyright reasons. But the man with the washing machine t-shirt on insists that she has to do the washing first before she can use the machine. So she ends up using all of the 10p coins on the washing. She's got nothing left to play the game with. So she goes out annoyed. This is the part of the strip where I do not understand what happens. Because as far as I can see, she's going down the street and sees some Space Invaders in the street. She has no problem with that. She says, Yahoo, Space Invaders, all ripe for pranging.
As was off the way in the 1980s, I think you'll recall.
So
It's everywhere.
So she takes out a pea shooter and starts firing at them. And then, Urk, it's alive, she cries. And she gets really sort of scared of these Space Invaders in the street all of a sudden and runs off in abject terror when they start moving.
And what don't you understand about this? This is perfectly clear to me.
One of the Space Invaders then says, silly girl, we're only advertising a new space film that's coming out. Why would she have no problem seeing Space Invaders in the street and then suddenly become terrified by them when they start moving? Come on, you're a doctor in this sort of thing.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It's
I
a
don't
fair
get
point.
it.
It's a fair point.
I don't get it.
It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's a fair point. I think
it's a sort of rubbish ending to a good story, I thought.
Yes, it don't make no sense. I mean, I just think it looks fantastic. I mean, the only thing that I found weird about it, I looked up, oh yeah, of course, yeah, because what they've done is they've written a story about Space Invaders because Space Invaders is a cool thing at the moment. And then I looked at it and going, no, this is from 1984. Yeah. Space Invaders came out in 1978. This is 6 years after Space Invaders, and computer games have moved on enormously.
So, do you know roughly what people might have been playing in 84?
Well, 1984 was like we all had ZX Spectrums, didn't we? So going down the arcade, I mean, people would have been going down the arcade, but as you say...
It may have been before 84.
Well, before... What happened was, as you so eloquently said, we'd go on the video games, spend all of our money and go, but I spent £1 there, i.e. all of my money, for 10 minutes.
For nothing. And so then when the computers were introduced, all this went out the window pretty much.
Well, why would you do that? You can sit at home on a ZX Spectrum or what have you. Other computers are available.
Yeah. Well done to the computer gaming people.
Thanks, Sir Clive Sinclair.
Although let's face it, 3D Monster Maze wasn't exactly very good, was it?
Terrifying 3D Monster Maze.
I mean, it used to take like about half an hour to get it going, didn't it?
Yeah.
You'd almost wind it up, with the cranking handle on the side of the computer. And then there'd be these like hideously basic graphics, and you'd think, "This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life," because it's in my home. Yeah.
Somebody should really write a song about those old computer games.
Those old days. Who can we get to do that? Matchbox coloured kits. We start the new Matchbox Green range with 2 great models from the Great Second World War. Throughout the war, the name Spitfire brought fear and trembling to the enemy. Now you can make the last great model of them all, the MK22/24 Spitfire.
That's the best one.
The last time it went into action was as late as 1956 over the Suez Canal. Matchbox. Get them today.
It was great, the Second World War. That's
one of the best.
One of the best. So shall we move on? Shall we have a look?
Move on from Minnie the Minx. What's on the next page?
The next page is Lord Snooty.
Lord Snooty.
I think we're going to come back to Lord Snooty, aren't we? Because
I guess we are, yeah.
Later.
Ball Boy is next.
An odd story, I think, because in the story of Ball Boy goes into a shop. Ball Boy buys an American football kit because this is quite current, because American football had started to be shown on Channel 4 2 years before this strip came out. So
that puts it in context really well. If this is when... So Channel 4... How long had Channel 4 been going? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
But it was early. It was early Channel 4.
Yeah. Did you used to watch the American football on Channel 4?
I knew it was on, and it was massively publicised when it was first on Channel 4, but I never watched it because I don't like sports, you see.
That would hold you back from enjoyment of American football.
I think Nicky Horn presented it. I remember things like that because he was a Capital DJ at the time.
Oh, right.
And I was obsessed with Capital Radio at the time in 1984. I used to sit there taping Kenny Everett, so I was aware of it from that point of view. So Ball Boy buys an American football outfit, and the shopkeeper's wondering why he's done it. And so he follows him to the game, and it turns out that it's a boys versus girls annual football match, and Ball Boy has bought the American football outfit because last year he pulled one of the girls' hair.
Bertha, isn't he? He pulled Bertha's
pigtails. And so now he needs all the protection he can get because she keeps smacking him about. But luckily he's got this American football outfit on. Well done, Ball Boy. Has he got a name, or is he just Ball Boy?
I don't think he's ever named.
Very wise.
Just Ball Boy.
Just Ball Boy. Later, of course, to inspire whatever that was, one was in Jackpot last time.
Oh, Owen Goal.
Owen Goal,
was renamed as, wasn't it?
That's the sort of detail we like to go into on this podcast for all you out there.
Now we're now looking at one of my favourite aspects of the whole comic, the Dennis the Menace fan club, from which we take our name in many ways.
Well, the classic Dennis the Menace fan club, including Nash's fan club page, is something I remember very vividly from reading this as a kid.
There's so much on this page that just, it's like there's the picture in the top of it, which is a fairly terrifying picture of Dennis and Nasher. But then there's things like you get your 2 club badges, including your hairy badge of Nasher.
With moving eyes.
With moving eyes, your smart club wallet, not a tatty club wallet, a smart club wallet. And then you get a sheet. I think you've got it, haven't you? You've got a sheet,
yeah,
which gives you all the details of all the words, the code words you can use for each other.
I mean, should we give away these code words?
We can't give away the code words,
because you only know these code words if you join the fan club. But I saw online that the fan club started in 1976,
right?
And it was getting 2,000 new members a week.
Wow!
Well into the 90s.
Incredible, isn't it?
I mean, I remember really wanting to join, but I don't think I ever did. I don't think I had the money.
Well, it wasn't money you needed. It was a 45p postal order.
That was not something I had on my shelf.
No, it wasn't lying around, was it?
45p postal order. That's complicated for a kid to get that.
I went and got one once. I went to the post office and got a postal order. It's
really?
Yeah.
I don't think postal orders were particularly in fashion back then, even. I think they were quite an odd thing even in 1984.
Well, yeah, there would be, because people had... I got a checkbook.
Checkbook? I
when I was 18.
Yeah. A postal order account or whatever.
It does explicitly say a postal. But I think, again, there's so much on this page. Like, I remember that they wanted a postal order. I remember that there was a coupon. I remember about the badge and the wallet and the code words. And then this bit here, each letter has a little bit that says T-shirt and poster, because... you get a free... If you're a member of the fan club, when you write in, you get a poster as well. That's an added gift that you get. And even one thing I'd forgotten about that just came brushing back was the way Dennis answers all the questions. Yours owlingly, or something like...
Or yours speedily, or yours helpfully, or yours answeringly, translatingly. Yeah, that was a nice little quirk that they had every week.
But there's a whole culture to it, isn't there? This whole page, and the black and the sort of pinky colour of it, the colour, the layout, everything just sits there going, this is how this is. This will be burned into your memory.
I mean, it's interesting that it didn't, according to Wikipedia, which might be wrong, it didn't start till 76. That seems funny. Quite late. I wonder if any of the other comics had done this sort of thing before that.
Yeah, well, other comics have had clubs and
like Marvel and DC stuff used to have clubs.
They had those. Yeah, Foom was Friends of Old Marvel was in the 1960s, but the British comics did. Like Dan Dare had a club you could join, and there was lots of them. Warlord had one where if you joined, you got a decoder, where he would put a message in every week, and you had to use your decoded device to work it out. But then Dennis only got onto the front of the comic in about 1972, 1974 maybe, because Biffo the Bear used to be on the cover, and then Dennis got onto the cover because Dennis
was actually popular.
Oh, can I just say this one? I hate Biffo the Bear.
Well, nobody really likes Biffo the Bear.
What an awful comic Biffo the Bear is.
What's interesting is that I'm a big fan of the Bonzo Dog Band,
right?
And they reference the Beano a fair amount. Lord Snooty and his pals tap dancing is something that turns up in the track that there's called the intro and the outro, and yeah, I think they mentioned Biffo the Bear in another track. It's such a big part of our culture. There was an album from Eric Clapton, might have been in the 60s, where on the front he's reading a Beano, so it was a big part of what was going on. We all know what it is still, don't we? Everybody knows what the Beano is.
But it still is. I mean, there was that thing a few years ago when Jacob Rees-Mogg was being compared to Walt the Softie, and it's like, well, we all know who you mean, obviously. Yeah. It's in everything, yeah.
And I remember Bob Mortimer saying Lord Snooty or something when he was on a Reeves and Mortimer show. I was thinking, okay, that's interesting, a reference point.
There was a brilliant letter. I went to see the Beano exhibition at Somerset House a couple of years ago.
So did I.
And there was my favourite bit was a letter that somebody had written in like the 1960s. And it just said, "Dear Beano, please stop Lord Snooty." And I thought, yes, I concur. Lord Snooty, is Lord Snooty better or worse than Biffo the Bear, do you think?
I think Lord Snooty is better. Because, I mean, according to this comic, Lord Snooty seems to be a reasonably nice chap. I don't know whether he is or not, because I can't remember anything else about Lord Snooty at all.
Shall we ever go and have a look at Grandpa? Because I think you wanted to talk about that.
I do. I'm just going to read out one of the letters from the Dennis the Menace fan club, okay? Just to give you a sort of taste of what it was like. Dear Dennis, I would like to know what your dad works at, because he always seems to be in the house or in the streets chasing after you and Nasher. Yours, Suzanne Stewart, Isle of Arran. Dear Suzanne, I showed your letter to my dad. He said, "Humph." Never mind what I am. What I want to be is an astronaut, so I can be as far away as possible from you, Dennis. I think he's just a full-time moaner. Yours answeringly, Dennis. So just quickly, do you know what his dad did for a living?
No idea.
It's quite an interesting thing to pick up on. We never know what job he's got. He's never at work.
He's never at work, is he? No. We never see him. But I suppose then, in those days, you wouldn't know what your dad did for a living.
No, you wouldn't know.
It wasn't part of your life.
No, I guess not.
And it's interesting that his dad says, "What would you?"
He doesn't say. He doesn't say what he does at work either.
He doesn't. And then what he does say is like, "I hate you, my child, and wish to be far away from you." It's this horrible attitude. There's all through this, the attitudes of the parents, the kids are, "Oh no, you."
Yeah. Where's the slipper for a good whacking?
Exactly. Yeah. And all the parents are like, "We do not like you, our children," and the children go, "We wish to be far away from parents," and that's like. It's kind of normal. It's kind of how it was then. There's no strip here where the parents pick Dennis and Menace up from a class and take him to another class and then take him to have a big slap-up feed with his friends. That doesn't happen like it does now.
No, it's just get the slipper out mainly. But we must say, just before we move on from this page, we must say, if you're thinking of joining the Dennis the Menace fan club, no stamps are accepted as payment.
Oh, right.
Does the fan club's still going, isn't it?
The fan club is now the Beano fan club.
Okay,
so
it's 20 quid or something, or 10 quid, isn't it? Something like that.
No idea.
A lot more expensive. I don't know what you get, but we'll look into that in a future edition of the show. But nice to... Oh, it's the Bash Street Kids! Right in the centre pages, nice and colourful, leaping out of the pages at you. I thought this was a really nice story. I thought it worked really well. It was still fun. And just like a very brief explanation of what the story is, the teacher says, we're going to have an art lesson. He says... see who can draw the best wild animal. So they all start drawing, and it looks fairly normal what they're drawing. And the teacher's saying, very good, they're actually doing something properly for once. But then Danny says, we're not finished yet, he. Care to see our finished drawings, readers? And then you see the drawings, what they've done. And Smithy has drawn a sea lion, which is something with the head of a lion and the body of a fish. Danny has drawn a welliphant, which is an elephant with Wellington boots on. Spotty has drawn a crocodile, which is a crocodile eating a clock. And Toots has drawn something, a orangutan, which is a monkey eating a load of cakes. You don't see Toots in this strip at all. The only female
she's not there, is she?
Bash Street Kid is not in this. And what I was going to say was I really like it. Plug is my favourite character because he went on to have his own comic, which I bought, which we might have a look at in the future.
Oh, I think we definitely will.
But from this particular issue, if you'd never read the Bash Street Kids before, by the end of it you wouldn't know who any of them were necessarily. They all blend into one mass of character. You know, none of them really stand out as characters in this particular one.
No, you're right. They don't do that because I thought it was odd that Sydney draws a leopard, and you thought Spotty would have drawn a leopard.
Spotty should have drawn a leopard. Spotty should indeed have drawn a leopard. I'm going to write into the fan club in 1984.
If you've got any old stamps, that's what you'll need.
No stamps are accepted as payment.
You're quite right.
Postal only. But yeah, I think the Bash Street Kids is really vibrant and fun, and it's still a really good strip. And it was going for it's still going, right? Still going in every Beano now.
Yep.
And it was drawn for many, many years. It was drawn from 1962 to 2023 by David Sutherland, the legendary Beano artist. And I was looking at an old one, and it was funnier than this one. It was in one panel. There's a dog looking at the Bash Street Kids who are all running down the street, and the dog thinks, that reminds me, I must go and buy this week's Beano. I thought that was a great joke.
Good joke.
A meta joke. Nevertheless, this 1984 version is still really good.
Yeah, and David Sutherland draws... David Sutherland draws Dennis the Menace. He draws Nash's Tale over Leaf. And he was a long-serving artist that... It's a nice way of putting it. He's not like somebody like Ken Reid. He's not like somebody like Leo Baxendale, who are known for inventiveness and excitement.
Madness.
And defiant. Yeah. He's a solid... strip here.
Solid, fun, good illustrator. Nice one, David. But then we get to this Grandpa strip. Now, Grandpa was started off, it was a Ken Reid creation.
Oh, was he?
Started in 1955, and we're looking at a 1984 issue, so it was going on for years. Grandpa is a mischievous Grandpa, but he acts a bit like a kid. That was the idea of it. I was looking at an old Ken Reid Grandpa, and it was really exceptional artwork, great jokes. The idea was the Grandpa goes back to his old school as a janitor, to work as a janitor, and then he plays tricks on the teachers and is expelled. I thought that was a really fun story. This is fairly unexceptional, I think we could say, this particular one from 84. It starts off like the Grandpa figure is driving around the track on a BMX bike. Lord Snooty and his pals are in this as well. They're observing what Grandpa's doing. And then Grandpa takes part in a sports day, wins all the events, and then at the end, Lord Snooty says, "What an athlete for a man his age." And then right at the end, Grandpa's actually in bed and he says, "Sorry readers, I had the flu, so I got Athletic Al to entertain you. See you next week." Lord Snooty says, "Aha, thought so," and pulls this beard off this bloke. So it turns out not to be Grandpa, but Athletic Al, who did all these stunts. One question remains. Who is Athletic Al?
Who is Athletic Al?
Who is Athletic Al?
It's crazy. And not in a good way.
The reveal is it's a character that nobody has ever heard of.
Yeah. This breaks the main rule of any mystery. There has to be a way, any mystery story, there has to be a way for the reader to guess the ending. At no point would you think, oh no, he'll be pretending to do it, because unlike in every other episode where Grandpa does something that is not usual for his age, the fact that he's doing something that's not usual for his age must be explained by him being somebody we've never heard of.
When I read this, I thought, okay, Athletic Al must be this big famous person like Billy Whiz. Maybe I just don't know that. So I scoured online, absolutely no mention on the entire internet as far as I could see of Athletic Al. So if anyone out there knows who that is, let us know.
But it's that guy there, John.
I know it's that guy there in the last panel. I know who he is now. That's no good to me. Nobody knows anything, unless he was in it the week before, and nobody liked Athletic Al after this week, and he was erased from history.
But it's just odd. It's a weird story, and again, not in a good way.
It's just not very inspired or any good. There's no point to it.
No,
it just feels like they had no. The writer didn't know what to do, so he did this.
Well, yeah, and I think this one is like this Grandpa story is like how I remember the Beano being, because you read it and you're like going, well, so what? Why
it was a big so what at the end.
Why has this happened to me?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
But that's why I went back to this old Ken Reid one. I thought, surely they can't all be rubbish like this. And they weren't. They were brilliant.
No, and some of these stories, are actually good.
They're still really good.
The Three Bears, which is later on, I read that. I really enjoyed that one. It made me laugh. There was a joke in it, and
I found the Dennis one oddly satisfying. The twist at the end seemed to work for me. This one, the twist just doesn't make any sense to anybody. So the poor kid is probably sitting there thinking, I don't understand it.
Never mind the poor kid. The poor middle-aged men are watching reading going, what?
No, we don't understand it. If you understand it, write in. Let's have the jingle.
DREDGEHIBBT@gmail.com. There you go.
Write in, and you won't get a free Dennis jersey.
And remember, when you do write in, no stamps.
No stamps are accepted as payment. We've told you. Know. But you can send us a postal order if you wish. Then we come to Pup Parade, which was a story of the Bash Street Kids' dogs. The dogs belonging to the Bash Street Kids, which is a great idea. I'm sure it was very good in most of the issues. Just this one, it wasn't. But on the opposite page, I'm afraid this is the one that we do not like. I think it's safe to say neither of us particularly enjoy Biffo the Bear.
Biffo the awful bear.
One thing I'd like to say about Biffo the Bear in this particular issue, bearing in mind it's in 1984, the way it's drawn looks like 1926. It looks incredibly old-fashioned. It doesn't look right in the context. I mean, look at how this old man is drawn.
There's an old man in there, and he's drawn like somebody from the 1920s, isn't he? Yeah.
Looks like my uncle used to look.
And it's not your uncle, is it?
I don't know. It doesn't say what his name is. But it's only, 5 panels, half a page. they could spare for Biffo. I think by this point everyone was getting annoyed with him.
I was always aggrieved when I'd read the Beano. I'd read the letters in the fan club page before I read Biffo the Bear.
Yeah, man.
I hate Biffo.
We do not like Biffo the Bear. What would you like to say about Biffo the Bear?
Well, I think we must bear in mind that when we upload this podcast to our podcast feed, we have to tick a box that says clean language. So with that in mind, I think we'll draw a veil over Biffo.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's our slap up Twitter feed he's talking about. Anyway, Biffo the Bear, we say farewell and not before time. Tom, Dick and Sally. The one thing I want to say about Tom, Dick and Sally, right? All that is how could we explain that? It's two boys and a girl who are related and their funny escapades. That's what it is. What I noticed about this page was the word irk is on here twice.
Right.
E-R-K exclamation mark. Irk! And nobody ever says irk in real life, only in comic books. But I think the word irk is said in this Beano edition about 10 times.
Irk.
So it's obviously very popular. It was very popular in those days, the word irk.
Irk.
That sprung out at me.
The thing that sprang out of me was the fact that the boys talk like Yoda in this, because there's one bit, where is it? Hang on. So they steal some food from Sally, because Sally is cooking food, because of course she is. Oh, she's making some jelly. And the boy says, got a soft spot for jelly cubes we have. And then later the other one says, looks tasty it does.
Right.
I have no idea why they're talking like Yoda.
That is a bit weird, yeah.
It's the high point of the story for me.
Well, that doesn't say much about the rest of it. Tom, Dick and Sally, again, consigned to the Biffo the Bear bin. But now the three bears... It picks up again. The issue picks up again.
I really enjoyed the Three Bears. I really enjoy. I love. So what happens in the Three Bears is amazingly, they're not after food. They're not after money. They're after both. So this combines the IPC comics where the kids were always after money, and DC Thompson were after slap up free. The Three Bears are after both. Oh, and this is actually funny.
It's nicely drawn. A lot of energy to it and silliness.
I love the bit where they're going. She shows, so a woman turns up and says, stop eating burgers and chips, which are their favourite. Stop! Bears don't eat takeaway food like this. They eat nuts and berries. And then she shows them a picture of some really skinny bears. And they go, oh yeah, okay, we'll go out to find instead. They go out to find some food. Here are some berry bushes. And somebody chucks some baskets at them. And they say, the person off stage says, baskets to put the berries in. And Pa Bear says, gasp! Some kind person has given us baskets to put the berries in. But of course they do. And then they go and pick loads of berries, scoff loads of berries.
Later,
that's when that happens.
Later. But so they collect all these berries, and then this farmer arrives and says, good picking, bears, here are your wages. So he takes all the berries and gives them a ton of money, which they're very pleased about. Now to collect nuts, says the mother bear. Off they go to collect a load of nuts. Then this squirrel emerges and says, great, thanks bears, you've saved me a lot of time by collecting my winter store of nuts. Except this. And this squirrel has got a ton of money from somewhere.
It's got a pile of money that's the same size as the actual squirrel.
Which is a nice little surrealist touch, almost worthy of Warner Brothers. And then they're quite happy to spend all this money in a burger bar. And at the end, they say, surprising how fattening collecting nuts and berries can be. How did that happen? Says the funny woman that came in that we don't really know who she is.
I love this one. I just thought
nicely
this
done.
Great.
Good story. Another thing I've noticed about while reading all these comics is how would you describe the box in the sort of right in the left-hand corner of each panel where you have one word? It's like so they suddenly say later, or it might say but, or it might say then, or so. There's hundreds of them.
There's a name for it, isn't there?
If you know the name, write in and tell us.
Then you too will win a PhD in comic studies.
Yeah, 3 for the price of 1.
I know the gap between the panels is called the gutter. That much I do know. I can't remember what those boxes are called.
Someone will know out there. I just noticed them as I was reading this. It's nicely done. You know, it's clear. It's clear what's going on. That really helps. I noticed that as well on the Dennis strip. Everything is very clearly defined. So a child reader knows what's going on. Like there's a bit where they all come out of they're all wearing Walter's flowery football strips, and there's a word. It just says humiliated. I think I can say we know what's going on in that panel.
I think we can know.
Thanks to the word hovering in the air, humiliated. But it's that sort of detail that makes the Beano what it is.
That's why it's been going for 50 odd years. Well, not 50 odd years, however long it's been going for. Nearly
Many, many years.
1938. How long is that? That's
many years.
Many years. Oh, of course. Sorry, John. I forgot you haven't got an O level in maths.
No, that was my worst ever subject.
Irk.
Grew. Ooh-yah.
Ooh-yah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that ends this edition of the Funny Comics Fan Club.
But before we go, we must answer the question: what is our 1, 2 favourites, and what did we not like? So what was your favourite?
What was my favourite? Let me just have a look through. You can look through at home as well, listeners. I mean, my favourite is the Dennis the Menace Fan Club.
It's great, isn't it?
That's my number one favourite feature.
Like it, yeah.
There's so much history to it and so many memories. I remember when a friend of mine joined it and I was amazed that he had these unusual code words that nobody else knew.
Hang on a minute. So you're not a member of the Dennis the Menace Fan Club?
Never
How
was.
have you got a picture of the code words for the Dennis the Menace Fan Club?
Somebody has blundered. But I think that's my number one, and then the Bash Street Kids is my number 2. But how about yourself?
I think I agree with you on the fan club. I thought the fan club was brilliant, but I love Minnie the Minx. I think Minnie the Minx is so fantastic. I thought that was such a great strip. It looks so good. It's such fun.
Lovely character.
Really good.
Amazed that they never animated that, unless they did, and I don't know about
I don't think they have they? But I think we can both agree on which one we don't like.
Yes.
Because you've turned back to this page so we can pour further scorn upon it. Biffo, the bear.
Steve.
That's
But it's a great issue, really. A great issue all round.
It's a standard issue, isn't it? I think
Standard issue.
It just
Beano.
feels like standard issue Beano. Good.
That's what it
Beano.
says. It's meant
And
to do.
it could have been it could have come from 1978. It could have come from 1990. I think this
Yeah. What? So when did the Beano? Do you know when the Beano started?
1938.
By Jingo.
Started
So
in this-
our grandparents, fathers, mothers, uncles would have been reading this.
Yeah, well, my parents read the Beano.
Yeah. It's a family thing.
The Beano started in the same year as superhero comics started. Action Comics #1 came out in 1938. The Beano came out in 1938. They're just as old as each other. So it's incredible.
Well, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back at some point with the next... Oh, I've got to give you the next comic that we're looking at.
Yes.
So in our next edition, this is the comic that we will be looking at. For the purposes of the tape, I'm getting the new comic out.
What will it be?
Here it is, Mark.
Crazy comic.
The Mask, the Motherlode. Crazy comic.
This looks
The
amazing.
governor of funny comics.
I'm just having readers. This looks fantastic. Great. So that's all for next time. But thank you for listening for this one. Do follow us, subscribe to us, reserve a copy at your newsagent, whatever.
Only 10p.
Only 10p. Whatever you. Well, it's 12p actually, isn't it? It's gone up.
Yeah, it's gone up since we last looked.
12p this time. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.